If you're struggling to forgive yourself, you would not even believe how common this is and how frequently I hear from my clients and potential clients about the struggle to forgive themselves. And it's a very wide variety of things that they think are unforgivable, but I want to address that with you today. And before I do that, the first thing I want you to know is it's not the number one thing that my clients struggle with. I would say the number one thing is that they feel worthy. And number two is the forgiveness part, because it's tied to the worthy part. If you don't feel worthy of success in your business, in your career, in your relationships with your family, in your finances, then of course you're going to end up struggling and feeling like you can't forgive yourself because you think you're not worthy. Well, one of the things that I start with my clients is I ask them if they can go back to a time and remember when they first had that thought of, there's no way I can ever forgive myself for this unforgivable thing. And they share with me a little bit about the situation that got them to where they were. And then we start looking into what were the thoughts going on in your head when this happened? What were the emotions you were feeling? Shame, blame, judgment. But it was the thought of, I can never be forgiven for what's going on. And sometimes when it comes to our relationships with human beings, that might be true. But it's not because you haven't asked for forgiveness. That's another good thing. Have you asked for forgiveness? But we don't have any control over someone giving us their forgiveness or not. We have no control over that. You know what we do have control over? What we think about something that's happened in our lives and what we do about what's happened in our lives. And the other thing I want to remind you about as well is, if you are a person of faith, or maybe you're struggling in your faith, if you go into scripture and you start reading up on, who does God say I am? Am I really unworthy? Am I really unforgivable? Was this behavior in this situation pretty bad? Yep. But is it so bad that it can never be forgiven by the one who created me? No. And in fact, you know the truth of it because it's right there in his word saying who you are in his eyes and who he created you to be. The other thing that I talk to my clients about when they're in this situation is we look at, why do you think it happened that way? Why do you think you made the choice and behaved in the manner that you believe is unforgivable? The other thing that I ask my clients about is the thing that you're struggling to forgive yourself about. What's the story you're telling yourself around it? Is it as unforgivable as you think it is? And if it is, because sometimes we do bad things. I know I've been there, and I can share all kinds of stories with you about why I did what I did, and I am not proud of that at all. But I was able to forgive myself. And when you look at what was going on in the thought process that you have, you start to understand that given the information you had at the time and the person you were at the time, most times you were trying to do the best you could with what you have. That's a great place to start. The other thing I want you to know is, in order to get to a place of being able to forgive yourself, you really need to immerse yourself into scripture and really, really wrap your head around who God says you are and what your role is in your life. Because when you stay in that place of unforgiveness with yourself, you are blocking grace from coming into your life and filling you with the energy, the spirit, the motivation you need to start pursuing your purpose. We've all been put here for a specific purpose, and during the course of our lives, it can change. I'm living proof. When you make the real concerted effort to forgive yourself, and that starts with changing your thinking around whatever the incident was, then you clear the way and you clear the decks, so to speak, to start moving forward and moving towards the person that you were created to be. You start to be able to fulfill the purpose of your life at this stage of your life where you are. So I want to encourage anyone today who is sitting in that place of unforgiveness for something they did or didn't do. You are already forgiven. You are already loved, and there is a plan in place for your life. This is something that I work with my clients on regularly. We use the process of neuroscience. I help them to learn to understand their brain, why it does what it does. I help them understand their thinking patterns. That's where the mindset work comes in, how to rewire those thinking patterns. And we really combine that very strongly with a faith practice of your choice. Because when you're grounded in the root of who you've been created to be by the creator of all, it's much easier to live in a place of forgiveness and to move forward and embrace the purpose that's been given to you. I want you to know that I believe in you. You can do it. You can forgive yourself because you are worthy of forgiveness. Take care, everybody.